And no documentation, anything like that?
Nothing at all.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 fake items on Pawn Stars.
Sometimes Corey's ego gets the best of him, but it's a lesson he's gonna have to learn.
I don't know what to say.
At this point, I'm just gonna pass.
I guess I'm just gonna go home and sulk in my own misery. Oh well.
For this list, we'll be looking at interesting items that were brought in on the show but turned out to be fakes, whether or not the world-famous gold and silver pawn shop ended up buying them. Do you have any fake items you've collected? Let us know in the comments. Number 10, John Lennon artwork.
The John Lennon. Come with me.
Aside from being one of the greatest songwriters in music history, John Lennon was also an accomplished artist. His artwork is universally recognized, especially the self-portrait doodles.
He did these doodles and things like that, and in the 70s, he realized people would pay him money for it. Then he started doing the really large ones. I mean, he did full, portrait-size ones. And almost all the art I've ever seen from him is like this.
A man came into the shop bearing some supposedly original John Lennon doodles, which the owner claims to have picked up at a thrift store of all places. There's a reason it was sitting in a thrift store and not in someone's personal collection. The owner believed it was worth $20,000, but when Rick flipped the paper over, he saw a Kodak paper watermark. As Lennon passed away in 1980, long before this computer paper was readily available, he easily declared it a fake, and the owner walked away with nothing.
So, it's cool, but it's 100% fake.
Glad I didn't pay much for it.
Number 9, Shoeless Joe Jackson book.
Do you know how rare it is to find his signature?
No, not at all.
It's the rarest sports signature, period.
Wow.
One of the most divisive and controversial baseball players of all time, Shoeless Joe was an exceptional player. However, his legacy was tainted after the 1919 World Series, which saw players of the Chicago White Sox intentionally throwing the games for money. A customer on Pawn Stars arrived with an old book titled Say It Ain't So Joe that was allegedly signed by Jackson.
But Joe Jackson's signature is so rare and so expensive, I just have to take the gamble before this guy walks out the door with it.
According to Rick, Jackson's signature is the rarest in sports, and the owner even had it certified. Rick ended up paying $13,000 for nothing. He had it looked at by various experts, all of whom deduced that the signature was fake.
Several factors became apparent during our thorough examination that prevented us from certifying the autographs, which means it's fake. The entire small case E in Joe's first name has been erased and signed over the original.
The title of that book has a certain irony to it. Number 8, Napoleon letter. That wouldn't be the last time that the Pawn Stars were fooled. In season 8, a man walked in with a letter that was allegedly written by Napoleon Bonaparte. The item contained many authentic aspects, including the period-specific wax seal and a certificate of authenticity.
Okay, it seems like it's from a pretty legit company. What do you want for it? And don't be crazy, man. I mean, I gotta make money here too.
Okay.
Corey ended up paying a surprisingly small $2,000 for the letter, but even that was too much.
2,000?
2,000.
All right, sweet, man. I'll meet you right over there.
Thank you.
Rick had Corey go to an expert, who was quick to judge the letter a replica. His primary concern was the ink, which was neither smudged nor faded.
We would see where there are blobs of ink, and we'd see that the ink would have faded in color. Can't say that this is worth very much as a historical artifact.
Well, there goes $2,000 down the drain.
Corey tried selling it in the shop for $20, but even that proved a failure, as Rick prevented him from selling a fake item.
We don't sell fake stuff here. Sometimes Corey's ego gets the best of him, but it's a lesson he's gonna have to learn.
Number 7, prison memorabilia. A tough-looking man with a handlebar mustache showed up with a suitably tough item, a Wells Fargo strong box, an antique ball and chain, and some handcuffs.
I'm looking to get around $2,000 for everything. The least I would take is probably around $18,000.
The ball and chain allegedly came from Yuma Territorial Prison, which opened in 1876, and the handcuffs from California's Folsom State. However, Rick was very quick to point out some historical discrepancies. The old handcuffs from Folsom had electrically welded chains, which proved anachronistic. And despite Rick claiming that prisons never put their name on the ball and chains, the Yuma ball and chain had a clear Yuma stamped into the iron.
Okay, so what are you trying to say?
It's fake.
Even the strong box was fake. a fact that Rick regrettably learned after shelling out $450.
I thought it was fake to start with.
Well, then why didn't you say anything?
I didn't want to bust your bubble.
What, so you let me spend the money instead?
Now I can holler at you.
Number 6. Pete Rose baseball cards. Pete Rose is widely regarded as one of the best baseball players of all time. He's a 17-time All-Star, won 3 World Series, and currently still holds the MLB record with 4,256 hits. As one can imagine, his baseball cards are worth some good money.
Before I buy these, I gotta know that they're legit. And these things look like they're in great shape. Maybe a little too good a shape.
In season 2, a man tried selling 5 1967 Rose cards. The fact that he had 5 proved a major red flag, and Rick instantly identified them as fakes.
How can you tell that? What do you mean?
Because the color's all faded, everything's a blur, even his face. It doesn't look silk screened.
Various aspects of the card's physical design were totally off, including the faded colors and overexposed picture. It's amazing how quickly dreams of cash can be dashed.
If these cards are fake, then what else is real? Is the wife real? The dog? The cat? What's real?
Number 5. Babe Ruth signed bat and glove. Speaking of baseball, in the 5th season premiere, a man walked into the shop with a particularly special baseball bat and glove.
Babe Ruth, he's probably the most famous baseball player of all time.
The accomplishments that Babe Ruth made in his career, I mean, he outshines just about every baseball player since him.
The glove was signed by none other than Babe Ruth, and the bat co-signed by Ruth and Christy Mathewson, a dominant pitcher who played for the New York Giants. The owner was hoping to get $120,000 for the 2 items, an exorbitant cost that had Rick rightfully consulting expert advice.
Who is your guy and what makes him special?
Because I trust him and I know him, and I don't know you.
Okay, that makes sense to me.
The expert deduced that the authentication papers were fraudulently signed by a criminal who was caught in an FBI sting known as Operation Bullpen. 14 individuals from 5 states were convicted in the scam.
So what's the bottom line?
With all the circumstantial evidence, my gut tells me that this is unlikely genuine.
The signature isn't considered legitimate, and Rick walked away from the deal.
I don't know what to say.
At this point, I'm just gonna pass. I'm sorry I can't do nothing for you, man.
I can understand that.
Number 4. Titanic Newspaper. Pardon the pun, but an authentic newspaper reporting on the Titanic disaster would be a Titanic find.
For a 1912 newspaper, it's in perfect condition. I mean, perfect.
The Pawn Stars were certainly excited when a man tried selling a copy of the Boston Daily Globe with the tragic headline, "Titanic Sinks, 1,500 Die." However, Rick instantly took note of the impeccably white paper and pristine ink, major red flags, considering the paper had ostensibly been around for a century. He also noticed that the picture accompanying the story was from a copy machine.
You see right here? That's from a copy machine.
Okay. So when they copied it?
Probably right after the movie came out.
Oh, the resale?
Needless to say, the newspaper itself was fake. But fake or not, it's still a really interesting thing to have around the house.
I guess I'm just going to go home and sulk in my own misery. Oh well.
Number 3. Monet Painting.
Okay, where in the hell did you get this?
A founder of the French Impressionist movement, Oscar-Claude Monet is one of the most famed artists of all time. His paintings, of course, go for big money, with his work, Le Bassin en Nymphéa, selling for $80 million in 2008. The owner of this particular supposed Monet painting was asking for $1 million. Nothing compared to his greatest works, but a sizable chunk of change nonetheless.
People have walked in my shop and I have bought hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of merchandise off them. But a real Monet? That might be the most expensive item yet.
The painting was supposedly on exhibit at the Las Vegas Art Museum in 1997, and the art came with numerous pieces of documentation. An expert was brought in, and he noticed that the paint wasn't sweating through the canvas.
The brush strokes are there. It's very thin. Usually you'll get some sort of impasto, a little bit more texture. He usually had some texture in his pieces, and this, again, there's very little of that.
Regardless of its beauty, the painting was not a Monet original. Number 2, Lincoln Family Photo. As Rick says, you never know what's gonna come through those doors. In season 16, a man came through with what seemed like a huge catch. A photograph of Mary Todd and Abraham Lincoln dated from 1863.
So where'd you get this?
I bought it from a collector who sold me a collection of 11 photographs that were unidentified, and I painstakingly was able to identify every single one of them and did recognize it to be Abraham and Mary together.
And no documentation, anything like that?
Nothing at all.
If correct, the photo would have been taken during the Civil War while Lincoln was serving as the 16th President of the United States.
You have to look at everything in the photograph, from what they're wearing to what type of picture it is, to then what's happening with the face.
The owner asked $1 million for the photo, and while the expert called it a gorgeous picture, it was nevertheless a fake one. But that wasn't enough for the owner, who rudely claimed that the expert was discrediting herself by calling it a fake.
I know you think this is worth $1 million, and
No,
you would like it to be worth $1 million, and all I'm saying is it's my opinion that it's not Abraham Lincoln.
We think someone was just a little upset. Before we unveil our number one pick, here are a few honorable mentions. 1967 Chicago Bears autographed football. Signatures were fakes.
These are contrasting signatures and very typical for what you see in a clubhouse signature. They were signed by somebody else other than the athlete.
Jimi Hendrix poetry. The pen, lettering, and signature were all wrong.
The last name seems to be, printed type style. He would always write in cursive.
Colt Army Model 1860. Number stamping was off.
Well, I've never seen one of these numbered here, this connector rod. I can just tell you I don't like the way the numbers are stamped. They're usually marked right here.
1777 French Musket. The grime and rust were completely artificial.
From everything I'm seeing here, this most likely is a movie prop gun.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications.
Number 1. Baltic Amber. Now, we're not gem experts or anything, but something that's 40 to 50 million years old is bound to be worth a good chunk of change. That is, if the item in question is actually millions of years old.
Piece of Baltic Amber with a tarantula. He's got some paperwork.
It's a tarantula?
A man arrived at the pawn shop believing that he was in possession of some Baltic Amber with an entombed tarantula.
Yeah, I sent it off to Berkeley and to the entomology department.
The owner had some sketchy paperwork supposedly proving that it was real amber, but the gemstone expert had it sent to the Gemological Institute of America at the personal cost of the owner, who paid $200 to have it sent out and appraised. Unfortunately, the amber was actually just plastic, and the owner was out $200. Now that's what we call getting ripped off at a pawn shop.
This sucks.
Do you agree with our picks? Check out this other recent clip from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.